A billionaire gave her credit card to a homeless single dad to test him, and in the span of 24 hours, what he bought broke her heart so deeply that even her unimaginable wealth couldn't shield her from the truth of human struggle. On that icy Manhattan morning, outside the upscale Kensington Cafe, Ella Kensington, heir to a Fortune 6 empire, expected the homeless father she met beneath the subway bridge to choose greed, luxury, escape, maybe a new phone, maybe liquor, maybe a designer jacket he could resell. That was what she had been taught to expect from people who had nothing. That the moment they touched wealth, they would waste it. What she didn't expect was the way the man's hands shook like someone holding hope for the first time in years, or the way his young son clung to the hem of his coat like fragile breath, trying desperately not to disappear into winter. Why would a billionaire test a homeless single father with her unlimited credit card? And why would the man's quiet purchase make even a billionaire cry? Ella Lehner had seen homelessness her entire life, but always from behind tinted bulletproof limousine windows. Her father used to say, "We don't give cash. People waste what they're given." She had believed him, stubbornly, blindly. For years she moved through the world as though wealth granted her clarity. But as she approached her 30th birthday, something inside her had begun to crack. Money didn't warm the cold emptiness of her penthouse bed. Charity galas didn't heal the restless ache that had taken root in her chest. Power didn't stop her from feeling poorer than people who had nothing. That morning hadn't been planned at all. She should have been heading to a board meeting, her leather gloves matching the mocha hue of her winter coat, stilettos clicking on the pavement with all the confidence expected of an heiress. She was supposed to sign documents worth billions. Instead, she stopped walking. A man sat beside a sleeping 7-year-old boy wrapped in a threadbare blanket. His boots were worn through at the toes. A cardboard sign rested against his knee. Single dad, homeless, will work for food. But it wasn't a sign that froze her. It was the way the man looked at his son, with a love so fierce it kept him alive more than the thin coat on his back. His eyes, though hollow from hardship, still carried warmth, a softness, the kind of eyes that once belonged to a man who had a home, a job, a life, and had lost it all piece by piece. Before she knew it, her perfectly manicured fingers were pulling her from the sidewalk toward him. "Sir," she said gently. He startled, like someone unfamiliar with kindness. "Ma'am," he murmured, "we're fine. You don't have to stop." But she couldn't walk away. Instead, she knelt, ruining Italian pants worth more than his entire month's survival, and studied his face. Light stubble, untrimmed hair, maybe 33 years old. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jackson," he answered quietly. "And this is Noah." The boy stirred, blinking open, tired. 2 old eyes. Children should not have eyes that exhausted. Children should have laughter, toys, warmth, not silence and survival. Something in her chest cracked open. She thought of her own mother, long gone, how she used to braid Ella Lehner's hair before school, kiss her forehead, tuck warmth into the smallest moments. Noah had none of that now. Ella Lehner reached into her purse, her heartbeat unsteady. A platinum credit card glinted in her hand, a card with no limit, a card that could buy cars, clothes, entire vacations. She placed it in his trembling palm. "This," she said softly, voice shaking from something she didn't recognize, "is yours for one day?" Jackson blinked, jaw falling open. "Ma'am, I don't understand." "Buy whatever you want," she said. "No limits, no questions. I want to see something." He stared at the card as if it were a bomb that might explode. Noah's tiny blanket slipped from his shoulder, and Jackson immediately pulled it back up, gentle, practiced, fatherly. "Why me?" he whispered. "Because I want to believe," she said faintly. "Believe that people still care, that the world still remembers how to be kind." He closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. Not a promise, not a performance, just a small, scared, grateful nod. And when he stood, credit card tucked into his coat, Noah lifted into his arms. Ella Lehner felt fear twist inside her. Not fear of losing money. She earned thousands before lunch. But fear that her father had been right, that kindness was foolish. She watched him disappear into the city crowd, breath visible in the frozen air. Her experiment had begun. Would he buy jewelry? Alcohol? Electronics? Would he vanish forever? Or would he buy something unexpected? She didn't know yet, but whatever he chose would change her forever. She couldn't sleep. Her penthouse was dark, floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the glittering Manhattan skyline. Yet she stood barefoot on cold marble, staring at the financial alerts tied to the card. Midnight, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Nothing. Not a single purchase. Why wasn't he spending? Why wait when you could buy anything? Unless he didn't know what to choose. Or worse, he didn't believe he deserved to choose. That thought hurt more than she expected. At 6:30 a.m., her phone buzzed. Transaction, $43.27, grocery store. Transaction, $18.96, drugstore. Transaction, $52.11, children's clothing, not liquor, not indulgence, not escape. He bought survival. Her breath hitched. Before she could think, she grabbed her coat and rushed to her private elevator. "Cancel my meetings," she told her startled assistant. "But the investors—" "Cancel everything." Her driver waited downstairs, but 5 blocks from the grocery store receipt address. Ella Lehner told him to stop. She needed to walk, needed to feel real pavement beneath her feet. Cold air she usually avoided. She found him outside a laundromat, steam fogging its windows. Noah sat on a bench, wearing a new navy coat. Cheap but warm. Groceries rested at their feet. Jackson folded Noah's tiny shirts with a tenderness that made her chest ache. When he saw her, he stiffened, almost guilty. I was going to return the card," he said. "I just needed time." "You still have it?" "Yes, ma'am." He pulled it from his coat carefully, holding it with both hands like something fragile. "Jackson, what did you buy?" she asked quietly. "Food," he said. "Medicine for Noah's cough. Clothes. Soap. Toothpaste. Just what we needed. And nothing for yourself?" He shook his head quickly. "My son comes first. Always." But something in his tone told her there was more. "Jackson," she said gently, "what else?" He hesitated, then handed her a receipt. At the bottom, the last line struck her like a punch. "Fort Greene Community Kitchen. $200 donation." "You gave money away?" she whispered. "They feed families like us." He said simply, "People worse off than me." He said it without pride, without seeking praise. He said it like kindness was instinct, like generosity was survival. Her throat tightened. "How long?" she whispered. "Have you been homeless?" "Since my wife died," he said softly. 3 winters ago." Grief wrapped into every word. Insurance had failed them. Savings had vanished. Work had run out. And when Noah was born, his mother was already gone. Ella Lehner sat beside him on the cold metal bench. For the first time in years, she felt human. And she hadn't even realized the test she started was no longer about him. It was about her. "Come with me," Jackson suddenly said. "There's something I want to do before I give the card back." Ella Lehner followed him through bodegas, steaming manholes, cold sidewalks. 20 minutes later, they entered a worn library with chipped bricks and faded paint. The librarian greeted Noah warmly. "You're back." Jackson nodded and guided Ella Lehner to computer station. Ancient desktops flickering like dying stars. "My wife used to bring him here," he said quietly. She wanted Noah to grow up reading, learning, dreaming. He placed a hand on a computer. "I want to buy him a future," he whispered. "Books, programs, a library card, whatever helps him learn." "A billionaire would buy buildings," she murmured. "A father with nothing chooses books." He approached the counter, nervous and humble, handing over the platinum card. The librarian blinked in disbelief. But before Jackson could sign, Ella Lehner gently touched his wrist. "Jackson, what if I told you this doesn't have to be temporary?" His breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I don't want this to end with one day and one card." His eyes glistened with fear and hope intertwined. Noah tugged Ella Lehner's sleeve. "Miss Ella Lehner, can we get Mommy's favorite book too?" Jackson froze. His wife's book, a ghost, reaching back through a child's memory. Ella Lehner swallowed hard. "Yes, Noah, pick any book you want." He returned with a secret garden, worn and loved. And Jackson's voice broke. That was her book. Ella Laner paid for everything silently. My gift, she said softly, but your choice. And outside, as snow began to fall, something in all three of them shifted. Something new, something fragile, something that felt like the beginning of a different life. Caleb didn't remember standing. He didn't remember moving. One moment he was frozen, breath caught in his throat, and the next he was kneeling beside the woman who looked at him like he was both a miracle and a ghost. Her sobs rattled through her chest, sharp and panicked, like someone whose heart had been torn open too fast. He swallowed hard. "Miss, are you all right?" It was a stupid question. Of course she wasn't all right, but his mind was scrambling for anything that made sense. She shook her head, wrapped her arms around herself, and whispered through trembling lips, "You look exactly like him, exactly." "Like who?" Her eyes lifted, wet, red, and terrified. "My husband." Caleb froze. The chatter in the cafe faded. The clinking cups, the hiss of the espresso machine, everything blurred into static. He suddenly felt like he was standing in someone else's life. "I look like your husband?" he asked softly. She nodded, tears spilling over again. "He died 11 months ago. A car crash." Her voice cracked. "You walked in and my whole body just reacted. I thought I was seeing him again." His stomach tightened. Grief did strange things to the mind. He knew. He'd seen it twist strong people into shadows of themselves. But this was deeper, sharper. This was a wound still bleeding. "I'm sorry," Caleb murmured. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't do anything wrong." She tried to wipe her face, but the tears kept leaking. "I should be apologizing. I shouldn't have fallen apart in front of you." There was something fragile about her. Not weak, fragile. Like someone who had been strong for too long and was finally cracking from the weight. The hostess approached cautiously. "Is everything okay here?" The woman sniffed, nodding. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause a scene." Caleb stood and helped her into her chair. She didn't resist. She looked exhausted, embarrassed, heartbroken, all at once. He sat across from her slowly. "Do you want me to leave?" She startled. "No, please, don't." The words came out too quickly, like she didn't have time to think. Then she blushed. "I mean, you can go if you want to. I don't want to make you uncomfortable." He shook his head. "I'm not uncomfortable." And he wasn't. Confused, yes, but something deeper tugged at him. An instinct, a pull to stay, to help, even if he didn't understand why yet. She dragged in a breath. "My name is Anna." "Caleb." When she heard his name, a small, watery smile flickered across her lips. He had the same name. Caleb felt a thud in his chest, unsettling and strange, like the universe was playing some kind of cruel joke. They ordered coffees. She held the warm cup with shaking hands. "I really thought I was doing better," she whispered. "I thought coming here tonight meant I was finally moving forward. My sister set up this blind date. She said it was time." Caleb blinked. "Wait, you're here for blind date?" Anna groaned softly and covered her face. "Yes, and now he's definitely never calling me back because he thinks I'm insane." He exhaled quietly. "Actually, I'm the blind date." Her head snapped up so fast her hair brushed her shoulders. "What?" He gave an awkward half-smile. "Your sister's friends with my coworker. They insisted. I didn't realize it was you until you stood up." Her mouth fell open. "So you saw me cry and you stayed?" He shrugged. Running out felt worse. Anna stared at him like she didn't know whether to laugh or cry again. "I'm sorry," she whispered for the 20th time. "You don't have to apologize." But Anna shook her head. "You don't understand. After he died, I didn't leave my house for months. I didn't talk to anyone. I stopped going to work, stopped cooking, stopped everything." Her voice shrank. "Tonight was my first attempt at being normal again, and I ruined it before it even started." Caleb leaned forward. "Anna, grief isn't a test you pass." She blinked at him. "It's not something you ruin," he continued quietly. "Some days you stand. Some days you fall apart in the middle of a cafe. Both count. Her lips trembled. "How do you know that?" she whispered. He hesitated. For the first time, he felt the ache of an old memory stirring, one he usually kept locked away. "My mother died when I was 12, he said softly, "and I thought my father was fine. He never cried, never complained, kept working every day." Caleb's jaw tightened. "One morning I found him sitting on the floor of the laundry room, holding her sweater and sobbing so hard he couldn't breathe." Anna's breath stilled. "Grief doesn't give warnings," Caleb added. "It just arrives." Something in her expression cracked open, just a little. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not leaving, for saying that." Their food arrived, pasta for him, soup for her. She wrapped her fingers around the bowl, like she needed the warmth to stay anchored to the moment. Minutes passed, gentle and quiet. Caleb finally asked, "Do you want to tell me about him?" Her eyes softened. "Would you listen, even though this is supposed to be a date?" "I think," he said gently, "this is exactly what this night is supposed to be." So she talked. She told him about her husband, Caleb Rowan, the firefighter with a crooked smile, the man who whistled every morning, who left sticky notes on the fridge that said things like "You're my favorite human," who danced with her in the kitchen wearing mismatched socks. As she spoke, her tears dried, her voice steadied, her shoulders gradually lifted from the weight crushing them. Caleb listened without interrupting. At some point, she noticed, "You're very patient." He smiled faintly. "You needed to talk." She looked at him for a long, quiet second. "Do you mind if I ask something strange?" He nodded. "Sure." "When you walked in," she hesitated, "did you feel something too?" Caleb didn't want to lie, not tonight. "Yes." Her breath hitched. "I can't explain it," he said, "but something felt significant, like I walked into a moment I wasn't supposed to miss." Anna's eyes glistened, but not with grief this time. Something softer. Something new. By the time they finished their meal, the cafe was nearly empty. Outside, a light drizzle tapped against the windows. Caleb stood and offered her his hand. "Can I walk you home?" She hesitated. Not because she didn't want to say yes, but because she was afraid of what yes might mean. He saw the conflict in her face. "You don't owe me anything," he said gently. "Not a second date. Not a promise. Not a storyline. Just a walk." Her chest rose and fell. Then she placed her hand in his. They walked slowly through the damp street. The air was cool, crisp, and smelling faintly of wet pavement. Halfway to her apartment, Anna spoke softly. "When I saw you, I thought the world was playing a cruel joke." Caleb nodded. "I figured. But now," she looked up at him, eyes shining under the dull glow of the streetlights. "Now I'm wondering if it was a gift instead." He didn't answer. He didn't have to, because for the first time in a long time, Anna wasn't walking alone. And for the first time in a long time, Caleb felt like he was walking toward something, and not just wandering. When they reached her building, she turned to him. "Thank you for tonight, for seeing me, for not running when everything got messy." He shook his head. "You weren't messy. You were human." Anna swallowed hard. "Would you?" she whispered. "Would you like to meet again? Maybe under less emotional circumstances." Caleb smiled. "Warm, quiet, genuine. I'd like that." She stepped inside the doorway, paused, and gave him a small, fragile, hopeful smile, the kind that blooms only after someone has survived their darkest year. "Good night, Caleb." "Good night, Anna." She closed the door softly, leaning her forehead against the wood, eyes closed, breath shaking. But for the first time in months, the tremble came from something other than sorrow. Outside, Caleb stood still for one long moment. The night felt different now, lighter, unexpectedly meaningful. He walked away into the quiet street, unaware that this strange, emotional, imperfect evening was the beginning of something neither of them saw coming. Not a replacement, not a repetition, not a second version of a lost love, but a new chapter, one that began the moment a grieving woman looked up, saw a familiar face, and cried, and the stranger stayed.